Don't Starve Together is full of interesting and wacky characters, each having their own playstyle and vibe. So obviously, players would eventually settle on a main after some time, or if you don't know what a main is, it's basically a character who they play the most frequently. And because Don't Starve Together has been out for, well, a little while now. Wait, the game is already 8 years old? What? Alright, existential crisis aside, players have sort of developed certain stereotypes for their mains. And in this video, we are going to talk about your main and what it means about you in Don't Starve Together. So before we start, I have to say that this video is meant to be for fun. If you go into this video expecting me to provide facts and logic, then you are going into the video the wrong way. Just remember that if I talk bad about your main, it's based on community-driven stereotypes with a slight hint of my own experiences, not proven facts. Alright, now that that short disclaimer is over, let's jump into the list. And first, we start with Wilson. Now, I have never personally seen a cracked Wilson main. They are always either complete noobs to the game who just didn't bother looking at the character select screen and picked the first one to show up, or they are intermediate players who don't want any fancy powers and want to be absolutely default. But never, and I mean ever, have I seen a Wilson main who handles the game like a pro. And yes, this is coming from a lifelong Wilson main from all the way back in the Don't Starve era. I am by no means a pro. In real life, you probably enjoy simple pleasures. You don't mind being a bit boring as long as things are familiar to you. Next is Willow. Now, Willow mains used to have an awful rep for their fire-causing tendencies, but ever since Willow's rework, she actually has been the Constant's best firefighter, both literally and figuratively. Willow gives you an intense feeling of power. She went from being a pyromaniac to a literal firebender, capable of insane crowd control and DPS with certain skills. Willow mains are never usually noobs, despite Willow being a very noob-friendly character. Why? Well, whenever someone first starts playing the game and looks up what character should I play, they may stumble into pre-rework articles that say that Willow is a burning pile of trash, and to be fair, she was. You will either catch Willow mains hard-carrying servers with their helpful spells, or off-burning bees to death, which is about 30% of what they do in-game. In real life, you are probably a big dreamer, longing for fictional power that you can't have in the real world. You see, Willow is the only character in the game that actually feels insanely powerful, because of the fact that she can literally firebend. Sure, she's not the best character, but you love the feeling of power that you get hitting that lunar flame spell, or combusting that swarm of spiders. Even if your teammates absolutely hate you because they can't attack things without that annoying fire effect. But you don't care because you're living your superhuman dreams. Next up is Wolfgang, and my oh my does this man have some stereotypes when it comes to him and his players. In-game, you will either find first-timers playing as him because they read an article online claiming that Wolfgang is the most busted OP character, only for them to get bored of the game quickly because his content loop is basically Wilson with extra damage and a few extra quirks. Or you will find those who have unlocked Wolfgang's true potential. If the latter joins your server, expect the Ancient Guardian to be dead by day 2, and Fuel Weaver to be dead by day 15. Yeah, true Wolfgang mains don't play around. In real life, you're probably actually a really chill person. Wolfgang is one of the easier characters to master with a content cycle of stay buff, do lots of damage, and overall be incredibly helpful to your team. And you love to be impactful in games, even if it means sacrificing your own fun, since Wolfgang has one of the more boring designs in the game. And you know what? I respect that. Thank you, Wolfgang mains, for your service. Next up, we have Windy. And here's the thing, Windy is an absolute noob trap. When a new player picks up Don't Starve Together for the first time, they probably switch around characters every now and then to keep the game fresh. But if a noob picks Windy, then it's over. They've been infected by the Windy main virus, and from there on out, they will always and forever be a Windy main. Why? Well, you really don't have to do anything as Windy to be impactful. Abigail does almost everything for you combat-wise, and you are even suggested to not do combat yourself, thanks to that 0.75 damage multiplier. Now, this is not saying that all Windy mains are complete noobs who don't know how to fight. This is just saying that if they grew into Don't Starve Together as a Windy main, they will never be able to switch. In real life, you probably try your best to find the easy way to deal with most situations. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. If anything, it's more of a smart thing to do. You also probably hate playing games alone. Why else would you pick the one survivor with a constant companion? Next up, we have WX78, and I swear if Clay doesn't fix their gameplay loop in their skill tree, I'm going to be very upset. So here's the thing, WX has circuits. They can plug these circuits in to gain special effects, some of them really helping out their team. However, the meta and circuit combo you will almost always see a WX main using is the Moggle Vision and 1-Speed 2 circuit. These circuits do nothing for the team and only help themselves, which isn't great because most WX players aren't pros at the game. Many WX players are probably coming from Don't Starve, where WX is absolutely busted thanks to their max stat pool, but they unfortunately don't have that ability over here in Together. In real life, it really depends. If you utilize all your circuits and help your team out, or at least, ask for stuff, then you are a team player and someone that everybody would love to have on their team. But if you're one of the many WX mains who pop your Moggle Vision and Speed 2 circuit in, steal all the gears from the base, and start your solo Ruins Rush in a public server, then you were probably very selfish in real life and hate when other people experience fun events without you, or before you. You want to have all the information and fun to yourself, which I frankly have to give a big thumbs down. Next up, we have Wickerbottom, and really not a lot of people main Wickerbottom, because at least right now, with no skill tree, Wickerbottom is pretty much a swap character for Maxwell mains to get some easy books. So the Wickerbottom mains you see are usually holding on to a lost time of when they were meta and the most powerful characters in any server, only to be outdone by Mr. 75 health infinite sanity magician over here. Wickerbottom mains are a mixed bag. It's probably a 50-50 if you get a good one on your team or not. But all of them are nostalgic for the days when they were great, and are secretly hoping that Maxwell gets nerfed into the ground so they can finally main their favorite librarian without people telling them, but Maxwell is better, which you know is true, but you just don't care. In real life, you are probably very nostalgic. You don't like moving on from things you find familiar, and when things change, you have a hard time adapting to it. You try very hard to be as useful as possible despite this, but unfortunately, as things change, you find yourself naturally becoming less useful. But you try your best, and in a world full of people that have given up, that means a whole lot. And I actually respect you guys for not giving in to the Maxwell curse. Next up, we have Woody. In-game, when they aren't begging for monster meat, Woody mains are actually pretty darn useful. Sure, they lost their status as King of Resource Gathering thanks to Maxwell, but Woody has unparalleled exploration potential and a built-in combat mode that allows them to run around pretty much armorless most of the time and during boss fights, saving that armor for others who actually need it. Woody is a jack of all trades by nature and can do almost everything really well, which equates to basically you need a lot of time to master him, so most people who play him are actually pretty darn good. In real life, you probably love being prepared at all times. You always plan ahead and ensure that you can either fight through hardships or navigate your way around them, much like your favorite funny Canadian guy. Next up, we have Wes, and if you have ever seen a proper Wes main join your server, then it's over. You see, Wes is a challenge character. His purpose is to put you into basically a hard mode. Generally, only experienced players will choose this character, and when they find out that Wes doesn't necessarily make the game harder, just longer, they will absolutely demolish everything. In real life, you probably have some sort of main character syndrome. You want to be better than everyone else, and you want others to know it. Why else would you pick the hardest character in the game? Hey, at least it's respectable. Next up, we have Maxwell. You'll either catch Maxwell mains with their Wolfgang duo absolutely demolishing bosses, or running around gathering every resource in a 5-mile radius just because they can. Maxwell is an unbelievably powerful character, and a useful one for a team at that. His only downside, which is 75 health, is easily negated by armor, or better, a beefalo. So you will usually see Maxwell mains rushing to get a beef before they depopulate, as most public servers go. As a fun side note, Maxwell mains generally also flex to Wickerbottom, but only to get her books and then come back to their main. In real life, you hate repetition. You probably picked Maxwell up one time for fun and realized that you can now automate the most tedious part of the game. You were instantly hooked. Now you can spend more time doing the fun stuff and less time holding spacebar or A. You don't necessarily think you are better than everyone else, but there's times where you wish people were smarter. Next up, we have Wigfrid, and much like Wolfgang, you are only going to see either pure noobs picking Wigfrid since they think she's one of the strongest characters in the game, or pros who understand how to utilize her kit fully. Don't get me wrong, Wigfrid is very strong, especially when players utilize her songs, but she suffers heavily from carnivorism, something that new players will never be able to figure out how to balance as they sit in the base and beg for meatballs. In real life, you probably are very desperate for power. You want to seem like you are the best, but always end up being used by others for their own gain. Deep down, however, you know that you are great, and that's what means everything. Next up, we have Weber, and Weber mains are unfortunately stuck with the curse of being known as server destroyers. Why? Well, just one competent Weber can cause a server to lag unbelievably. I'm not sure what it is about spiders, but they cause the worst lag I've ever seen within Don't Starve Together. Even Willow's farming killer bees isn't anywhere near as bad. It's probably a pathing thing, but still. Webers try their best and are hindered by the game. In real life, you probably love playing summoner builds in any game you choose. With Weber, you have many types of companions and can switcherdoodle them to whatever you need, really. It's actually very intricate and fun, and the most summoner-esque build you can get within Don't Starve Together, besides Maxwell, although I would classify him more as a mage since he's really basic in comparison. Either way, you prefer to not tackle things head-on, you want to be as calculated as possible when dealing with hardship in life, and you also probably really like spiders and think that jumping spiders are the most adorable insect to ever exist. Next up, we have Winona, and Winona is in a bit of a weird spot now, having been the most recent character to receive a skill tree. Well, at the time of making and uploading this video, that is. She has only recently changed from a swap character to a character that's meh. Winona mains are incredibly rare. Generally, they are pretty good at the game since Winona is practically useless early game, but once they get going, they realize that Winona can utilize some serious cheese, and they start snowballing pretty hard. In real life, you probably love the idea of engineering your way around obstacles, much like you can find some very powerful cheese as a Winona player. You can also generally find cheese in the things you do in real life. Unfortunately, unlike many of the Don't Starve Together monsters, life can't be dealt with using a boat and some catapults. But knowing you, you just might find a way to do exactly that. You guys are just really crafty. Next up, we have Walter, and Walter mains are interesting. Now, Walter right now doesn't have a skill tree and is widely regarded as the true challenge character. I personally am hoping this will change with the next update, but regardless, the facts are there. Walter is pretty bad. His ranged weapon has terrible rate of fire, and Wabi is incredibly underwhelming, especially as a mount. Many Walter mains probably were Wheeler mains from Don't Starve, and thought that his slingshot would be as amazing as her Pneumatic, but were woefully mistaken. In real life, I actually don't know. The amount of Walter mains in this game is so low that there's really no data I can share of personal experience, and after studying old Reddit pages and Clay forums, I really couldn't find anything community-wise either. So if you're one of the 3 Walter mains out there, I guess you are mysterious and cool. If you are one of them, be sure to leave a comment, and hey, while you're down there, be sure to leave a like and subscribe as well. Next up, we have Worley, and Worley is quite literally the support character of Don't Starve Together. He's not great alone, sure, you can make him work, but he absolutely shines with other players. His recipes and spices allow him to buff teammates and himself immensely, and a good Worley is the backbone to any great team, and I'm sure nobody would complain if a Worley main joined their server. In real life, you absolutely love playing as a support character in any game you play. You also generally value others' entertainment over your own. Sometimes this can manifest in an unhealthy way, however, as you will sometimes sacrifice your own fun for others to have fun. Being a Worley main is a thankless job most of the time, and the few of you that are out there deserve so much more. So here's me saying thank you, and keep being awesome. Next up, we have Wormwood. Now, many people assume that Wormwood is the farming character who, much like Worley, falls heavily into the support category. However, Wormwood isn't actually that much of a support. Yes, he farms incredibly well, but it's not like he farms any more effectively than other characters, just faster. Many people don't realize that Wormwood is actually a jack of all trades, much like Woody, able to set up a base with wait a minute, this isn't a character analysis. The point is, Wormwood is really freaking useful, and most Wormwood mains know what they're doing. In real life, you probably love feeling useful. Wormwood is one of the highest value characters in the game, providing many resources that others just can't, living logs being one of the best ones. As much as you hate yourself for it, you secretly get a huge dopamine rush when someone says, living logs please to you. Because even though it makes you feel lesser sometimes, you just absolutely love feeling needed. Perhaps maybe you even crave it. Why? Well, that's for you to figure out, my friend. I'm not a therapist. Next up, we have Wartox, and there is two types of Wartox mains out there, the Weasel and the Support. Weasel Wartoxes are very greedy with their souls because they always want the option to get out of jail free. They hardly will ever heal. This greed also goes as far as their soul-eating habits. Even if they have a stack of 20 souls, you'll catch the Weasel Wartoxes eating all of the food from base, knowing that they have a mortal food penalty. Then you have the Support Wartox. These guys are a godsend to any server. They don't mind walking around with no souls and will happily use their last soul to top up everyone around them. If they have no souls and they are starving, well, these guys would rather starve to death than dare ask for food from their mortal friends. Thankfully, a larger majority of players fall on the support side. In real life, Weasel Wartoxes are incredibly selfish. They want to win everything they do, and they don't care who they have to climb over to get to that sweet victory. They would probably make really good corporate CEOs, to be honest. Support Wartoxes are probably the most selfless of all the characters. Yes, even Warly mains, because Support Wartoxes have the option to go full Weasel, but they actively choose not to because they care that much about their team. Next up, we have Wirt. Wirt, much like Winona, is the most recent to receive a skill tree, and hers is actually really good. She's basically a more powerful Maxwell that requires far more setup. Many Wirt mains love to join a server and disappear to the local swamp to create an empire that no one but themselves will be allowed to see. In real life, you love playing the waiting game. If it means you get to win, you don't mind. Patience is a second nature to you, and you're generally very chill even in the face of adversity because you know with enough time, every challenge can be overcome. Next up, we have Wanda. Wanda is one of the more combat-focused characters in the game with a disgustingly powerful kit, and the downside of health that is naturally low and naturally decreases. Most Wanda mains, however, know that as long as they stay armored, this downside is moot, and they can steamroll almost anything the game throws at them. Many Wandas are actually valuable assets to public worlds as well, thanks to her infinite telltale heart that she gets. In real life, you're probably deep down a fan of Souls-like games. Wanda with her backstep watch is the closest we can get to a proper combat role in Don't Starve Together, and Wanda mains will most likely make sure to utilize it to their best advantage. It has a high skill expression, and you absolutely crave that. You want to know that what you're doing is naturally risky. Unfortunately, Wanda has one of the most busted kits of the game, so she's also recognized as one of the easier characters to beat the game with. You probably refuse to believe this, though. And finally, Wonky. And what is there even to say? If you happen to be a Wonky main, then you either really miss playing as Wilbur from Don't Starve Shipwrecked, or you just want to be a monkey guy. Either way, you guys are absolute chads and could probably solo Fuel Weaver with your fists. At least, I wouldn't doubt it. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to give a huge shout out to all my channel members for keeping this channel alive with their generosity, and a shout out to you because you liked the video and made sure you are subscribed, right? Well, with that said, YouTube thinks you would like to watch this video next, so I will see you there.